All right, thank you so much. Welcome to another episode of the award-winning Sales Game Changers podcast. My name is Fred Diamond. Of course, I'm the founder of the Institute for Effective Professional Selling. And Wendy and Lee, I'm excited. We're well over 800 Sales Game Changers podcast episodes. You could find all of our back episodes at salesgamechangerspodcast.com. And if you search ScienceLogic, you'll find today's show with Wendy, Wooley, and Lee Koepping. The show is also, of course, on YouTube. If you're watching this on YouTube, please give us a thumbs up. Leave a comment if you'd like. We'd get to them all. Lee and Wendy, we've had some shows where we've had over a dozen questions and comments. So we look forward to getting to those. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, give us a 5-star review. We would greatly appreciate it. So I'm excited today. We have Lee Koepping and Wendy Wooley with ScienceLogic. And this is the first time over 800 shows that we've had sales leaders from ScienceLogic. I'm very excited. One of the reasons is your headquarters is not too far from my office in Reston, Virginia. I know you both are outside of the area this morning, but I broadcast live from Reston, Virginia, which is the heart of the Northern Virginia Tech Council for people, or tech area for people who don't know where I'm based. We've had over 17 million listeners or interactors with the Sales Game Changers podcast. It's kind of the business, the tech center of the DC region. We're not too far from Dulles Airport. So I pass your building every day on the way to work. So I'm very excited to get to learn more about you both and your company and how you go about the sales process. So this is exciting. So Lee, why don't you get us started? Tell us a little bit about ScienceLogic and its AI-powered observability solution platform and what you are selling to both government and B2B enterprises.
Well, thanks, Fred. Appreciate this. Really, ScienceLogic as the core of what we deliver. We're myopically focused on delivering an agentic AI platform that observes, it advises, and it automates IT operations. So we can see across the entire digital estate. I think really, if you wanted to sum it up, we're an IT productivity tool for IT operations.
That's very cool. Well, I'm kind of curious, how would you describe ScienceLogic as well?
Oh, that's a great question. First, congratulations on over 800 podcasts. That's amazing.
Thank you.
For describing ScienceLogic, I concur with the observability tool and really for helping our customers improve the day-to-day IT operations for what is so important in every business. IT operations management is the key that allows things like this podcast or other primary functions of their business to run and operate. And you want to make sure that it is always on operational and you've got that observability for what is most important in today's world in getting everything to work as expected and have the observability to do so.
That's great. So you're the VP of Customer Experience and Strategic Programs. How do you support the sales organization across customers and your partners? And tell us a little bit about your partners. What types of companies are partnered with ScienceLogic to bring your solutions to market?
We have a number of MSPs. We've got longtime MSP partners. We've also got GSIs. And so they're both serving different parts of the marketplace. And we're very blessed to have those types of companies as our partners. It gives us the ability to expand beyond just the ScienceLogic footprint for sales and allows us to get that global reach and work with some of the best in the industry.
So you mentioned GSI. For people who don't know, that's Global Systems Integrator, correct?
Yep.
Okay, so explain to our audience who may not understand what they do.
I would say with whether it's the MSP, our federal partners, our GSI partners, they all have specialties. And the GSIs definitely have their own way of going to market with their own platform. We become part of their own solution. They're not bringing just ScienceLogic to the table, but we are part of an entire ecosystem that they bring to their customers. And so they are unique in that manner. And as you know, GSI being global, they're definitely some of those largest global systems integrators in some of the names that you would hear.
Yeah. So Lee, you're the VP of Global Sales Engineering at ScienceLogic. Tell us what you do. Tell us a little bit about your background to get you to this point as well.
Yeah, thanks. As the name implies, sales engineering is the team that I run worldwide here at ScienceLogic, which all that really means is I'm bilingual. I speak sales fluently, and I'm a technologist. So we're very much in the forefront of both introducing um, our platform, our concepts, our operations to our partners and to our end customers, and as well as delivering that value proposition and translating it between business and technical terms often.
All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about, again, you mentioned AI Agentic. So let's get a little bit into that. I'm kind of curious. So again, Wendy at ScienceLogic, and by the way, I went to YouTube. You guys have a couple of very good videos that crisply explain what ScienceLogic does. So if there are people listening, and there are who are partners who are more curious to see a nice crisp grasp of what you do, I encourage you to go to the ScienceLogic website, and some of these videos really crisply explain that. So you have a framework. For not just selling and delivering features, but also ensuring that you're delivering measurable, repeatable business results, business outcomes, business results. Tell us how this is applied by your sales team. Again, I run the Institute for Effective Professional Selling. People usually listen to the Sales Game Changers podcast for solutions on how to have their sales team be more effective. And how do you convey the strategic advantages of your technology offering to them and out to the field?
It's a great question, and thank you for asking. Science Logic developed what we call the autonomic IT maturity model, which is our AI maturity model. And one of the things that changes as far as the playbook for AI is that the technology is not necessarily front and foremost. The business outcomes become very important. And there's also maturity. You're not going to get to agentic AI day one. There are a number of things that happen for our customers over time and with a journey. And so this is, not the how you are a customer. This is where we're going together in partnership. And strategically, how are we moving forward for people, process, and technology? It's not just technology, especially with AI. Workflows have to play in as well. And so that's very much people and process in order to get customers to where they want to go using our solution. And so the framework helps to explain what a customer does in using our solution over time, but it also allows us to use it as a go-to-market tool. We have trained our salespeople against this maturity model so that they understand how to sell the value and the outcomes, not just sell the technology. So it's become a very important tool for us, both internally and externally with the customers. And we do have it client facing in a blog series and other resources on our website. So we use it extensively.
So that's actually great. And one thing that again, every sales leader is looking to understand AI and how do they use it. One thing that we've discovered is there's a lot of selling organizations who are just using tools, right? And they're just throwing tools, and maybe someone, the salespeople are using chat or Claude or whatever it might be, to generate emails. And if they're smart, they're using it for various ways to prompt to find what their prospect challenges is. We're doing today's interview in November of 2025. I had a conversation this weekend with a senior sales leader at a well-known company who said that he has a 39 prompt approach to understand the challenges that some of his customers might be using. For both of you, what are the sales leaders that you're interfacing with challenged with as it relates to AI? I know you like the solution, but what are they asking you for? What are they saying their biggest challenges? And either one of you can start the conversation.
Yeah, it's on the sales front, our own as well as a lot of our peers in the industry. I think their biggest challenge is variety. AI has exploded in a way that I don't know that anybody could have anticipated. We barely had these kinds of conversations less than a year ago, and agentic AI beyond that now is AI connected to AI and sort of multiplies, if you will. So the biggest challenge that we've seen in sales is just a variety of different ways you can leverage AI to get information, almost too many. And so, like any new technology to the market, I expect that to settle down, to gel either through acquisition, through market demand. It'll settle itself out. But I think the biggest challenge right now is how do I use AI? Where do I use AI? When do I use AI? Because sales is still very much a human game. That face to face, really understanding a problem, trying to achieve an outcome. AI is not going to replace that, but AI can definitely be used to get to the right people at the right time in the right place. But the magnitude of offerings available to try and do that, I think, is really the hard part for sales professionals today, and this will evolve, I expect.
Yeah, Wendy, what do you think?
Oh, I agree with that. And it's interesting to see the different tools that different parts and within our sales organization, what they might be using. A BDR is going to use something different than an AE, for instance. The tools and tech within those different roles and then the tech stack that they're using have some overlap. And I've seen a lot of that shifting out over this last year where you've got two tools that start to do the same thing. So you've got to then understand which one's going to get you the best value and for your day as a salesperson. And you can make sure that you are the most efficient with the best information. So that's been something over the last year I've watched, and it continues to change at a really rapid pace. So I imagine over the next 12 to 18 months, it should settle out a little bit more, but it is ever changing. And I think that's probably a challenge that everyone's navigating.
Just kind of curious. One of the things that we've seen in talking to a lot of the sales organizations is exactly what you both said. Some people have used the expression the Wild West because so many tools. And Lee, I like the way you said that there's now tools connecting to tools, which is providing, multiplier effect, if you will. Uh, where do you see organizations going as it relates to AI, either standardization or governance? Do you see that, or do you see where one of the things that we've seen is organizations are struggling with that, but they want to get to that point, kind of like how people should be using social media, right? If
Right.
they work for the company, or how they should be using the internet 20 years ago. What is our stance on that? Are you seeing that from customers that you're interfacing with that they're struggling with this and they want to get to it, or are they just so overwhelmed that it ain't even on like the framework or the not the framework, but it's not even on the horizon, so to speak?
No, it's definitely on the horizon for sure. I think our customers, even ourselves, and I like how you hearken this back to sort of the social media introduction. Social media is and was a sales tool itself. AI is harnessing that same data and just making it faster. But how you adopt to that, how much you contribute to AI, I think is a big fear factor of a lot of organizations. They want to use AI to consume, but they don't really want to share a whole lot because of the machinery that it is. It could expose things, et cetera. So I think we're seeing that same kind of struggle now with, obviously the variety of how do I consume it? How do I make the most effective use of these platforms? How do I chain them together? But also, how much do I contribute? How much does my organization allow me to contribute? There are a lot of organizational rules now around access to those tools and filtering that goes on within a corporate network. So we're very much at a inflection point of when that starts to become normal and when the acceptable use policies start to form. We're pretty early days in that regard.
Yeah, Wendy, what do you think?
I really like that you use the word governance.
Mm,
And that's really an important part of being able to adopt and engage successfully with all of the AI options that we have
mm.
out there. And as someone who's a PMP, so I take a look at things from very much a workflows and standard operating procedures. And do customers have that? Or do companies or do sales organizations, whoever it happens to be, do they have SOPs? Do they have workflows? Because you've got to know how you're doing it now to figure out how you can really use AI and you can improve what you're doing. And so I think that governance is so very important in being able to effectively use it no matter what your role is.
Yeah, Lee, I'm kind of curious. How do your sales and go-to-market GTM approaches vary between B2B, business to business, and business to government? It's kind of interesting. A lot of times I tell people the Institute for Effective Professional Selling, we're all about helping B2B and B2G selling organizations be more effective. Almost everybody understands B2B. So many times when I say B2G, people are like, what does the G stand for? And of course, we're all based in Northern Virginia, which is a big hub for government sales. So, Lee, what are your thoughts on that particular question?
Well, as it relates to the use of AI for selling, there are a lot of differences, and this goes back even before the advent of AI. How you approach these two markets, they first of all, they all want the same outcomes, right? Fundamentally, they're using the same technologies toward the same outcomes, and they have many of the same challenges. Government may have a few more acronyms for their challenges versus what we would consider commercial, but by and large, they're seeking the same outcomes. As it relates to approaching them as a market, it's very different. A lot of the information that you would use, whether manually or whether through AI, to find the right person at the right place at the right time, it's very different between government. Email addresses not necessarily exposed, different regulations that they have to follow through, how you start those conversations and what's relevant to them, even though they're looking to achieve the same outcome. So there is a difference in go to market. AI has to some extent democratize that difference because the information is so readily available. Much harder to manually find your way through, approaching a potential government customer because they don't have a large LinkedIn presence, for example. Most of their contact information is not published. So AI has brought that out and can find that information faster than a human in many cases. So I think it starts to normalize that, but there is a very different approach in how you use those tools to go to market.
Yeah. So, Wendy, let's get a little more specific about that. For people who don't know, tell us some of the things that you do differently to sell to the federal market. What do federal customers demand that isn't as required as much in commercial? Like, and also, for example, y'all just became what they call FedRAMP certified, which is
Mhm.
kind of timely. So, maybe you can kind of tie that in as well.
It's an interesting question because it gets down to the point of security. And FedRAMP, for those who may or may not know, it's not just a certification or an authorization. Is it an authorization? Yes, it's an authority to operate, but it is not just technology. FedRAMP is people, process, and technology, and you've got to do it all in order to ensure that you are keeping government data safe. And that is really at the core what FedRAMP is about. And so any company who can reach that high bar has a solution and a company and an organization that is working in a compliant manner with what the federal government is looking for. Now, you say, is there a crossover over to our B2B customers? And there absolutely is. And while our customers may not be using the FedRAMP solution, that does not mean that the technology, again, that people process technology, it doesn't mean that technology is fundamentally different. And so we really do, by means of having gone through that process to become FedRAMP authorized, ensure that not only our government customers are getting that highest level of security and understanding of the importance of data security, we also have that for our B2B customers because it is one platform. And so whether it is on our on-prem solutions or whether it's our SaaS solutions, we get to share that with our customers regardless. But then there is that higher bar that we've got to meet in order to serve to the standards of the U.S. federal government and other agencies that can use that FedRAMP, state and local, et cetera.
Yeah, very good. So again, we're talking today with Lee Koepping and Wendy Wooley from ScienceLogic, and I want to thank you both for the insights that you've shared on. I want to get a little more specifically with you about about some of the AI processes and things you might be doing before I ask you for your final action steps. And Wendy, you can chime in after Lee speaks as well. But Lee, if you've kind of started to touch on this, but
Mhm.
how are you using AI in your selling processes? Currently? What are some of the things that you might be doing? And again, everyone's looking for ways to, I like your answer before. There's so much going on, right? There's so many ways, but, people are also trying to figure out, what are the best practices? What should our people be doing? What is just like taking us down these paths of non-importance, right? So kind of curiously, how are you using AI in your selling processes?
And first and foremost, we're using it to identify the correct contacts. those people that have the buying signals, as it were, are they the right position in the organization? Do they have a strategy? This is information you can harness with AI. There are a lot of purpose-built systems that deliver just that. And then the next portion of it is, how do I start to craft that message? How do I approach a potential client or an organization with that? And then we also leverage AI just from a pure marketing perspective, doing things like geofences and putting the right information to the right crowd at the right time, for example. So there's sort of different categories of how AI can be effective depending on the sales cycle, initiating it, nurturing it, maturing it, and then ultimately closing it. And then how do you leverage AI then to start to replicate that, and make life easier for each person in that step, whether it be marketing, whether it be the sales professional, um, and whether it be sales ops, for example.
Yeah. Wendy, anything else you want to contribute to that?
Uh, yeah, I think the other way, I work with the renewals. So I'm looking at customers' full life cycle. And there are some fantastic capabilities within the tools that we have to identify changes in buyers, organizational changes, and that is becoming more and more important as we look at the fact that relationships and sales continue to be important. You can never get past that human relationship, but you need to know the changes happening in organizations, be proactive, and then be able to reach out accordingly. And so I think that's the additional thing that I would add in is, if you've got those tools in tech, set it up so that it lets you know in advance if there's changes, and then you can proactively work within the organization to have the right messaging and welcoming to some new leaders that may be coming into play.
Very good. I'm just kind of curious. And one thing again, we mentioned the word governance before, and that's a word that has been chiming up a lot on the Sales Game Changers podcast. Does somebody at ScienceLogic own AI? You mentioned, Lee, a couple different organizations. Again, you mentioned, you lead the sales and engineering side, and Wendy, you just mentioned you're on the renewal side. Is there like a czar or something in the company that was appointed who's like in charge of everything AI as it relates to going to market, or still kind of bring people together to kind of figure it out? Because, like you said, Lee, the train is moving pretty quickly, and a lot of companies are, as they say, changing the tires as we're driving.
Within our organization, each of those departments that play a role in the life cycle of a sale, they very much have the autonomy to do the research and say, this is a technology we want to use and that we want to adopt. However, and I don't suppose this is different in any organization, governance is still security. And so we do have a single focal point of security, a gentleman in our company that will, yes, you can, or no, you can't use this tool. So I think the tools themselves, the strategy behind them would be promoted from within across any department, but the authorization to actually use that to potentially expose data that the company may have, or use AI in ways that they would be used, that is actually governed. And um, again, I think most organizations are going there. I feel like we're a little ahead of most. We had a lot of rules early on about, as a manufacturer, for example, how much can we leverage AI? What do you upload to AI in order to get an insight? You don't want to expose, vital information, about the product or the R&D process or things like that. So that's always going to be a concern.
All right, once again, I want to thank Wendy Wooley and Lee Koepping from ScienceLogic. You've given us both so many great ideas, so many things that are thoughtful, and I appreciate that. Why don't you both give us a final action step, something specific that our listeners should do right now to take their sales career to the next level? Lee, why don't you go first, and then Wendy, why don't you bring us home? Specific action step for people listening to the show or reading the transcript that they should do to become a more effective selling professional.
First thing I'd recommend is you use AI to do the homework. I mean, that's what it's for. It's there to save time. It's there to provide insight. It's there to shape your initial ideas. I would recommend kind of settling in if you don't have governance. If there is no recommended tool, you'll find one that you're comfortable with. There are plenty of them. But that critical homework, how am I going to, I know what I have. I know what the customer may or may not need, but how do I find the right person at that right time? And how do I get as much information as I can so that first human contact is that much more meaningful, is that much more relevant?
Very good. Wendy, why don't you bring us home?
I'll go on the people process side since Lee had a great thing on the technology. And fundamentals always be closing. It doesn't matter if you've got a new deal that was signed or if you've got a renewal. When it comes to that customer, you know that there's a way that you're going to be engaged with that customer across the business, building that great customer experience. I think the more you understand how your own company works, the better you can ensure that no matter what you're doing with the customer, you're ensuring that they are always having a great experience and everyone understands the ABCs.
That is great. Great way to look at it. All right. Once again, thanks to Lee Koepping and Wendy Wooley from ScienceLogic. ScienceLogic. My name is Fred Diamond. This is the Sales Game Changers podcast.